Chapter 1 again, and there is still a man in red armor planted in front of that castle door. Frelia, the commander who holds this chapter, and he was last seen on 2 health. But look at the square he is standing on. That is a gate, and a gate in this game hands health back to whoever is holding it every turn. So he has been quietly mending himself on the objective, and that objective is the whole chapter. C's gate means Eirika and nobody else standing on that one square, which is who the cursor has just found. One press and the grassland floods blue. 16 of 16, 5 squares of movement, and a range that does not come within half a map of that castle. The only unit who can end this chapter is nowhere near the square that ends it. There is something else in that grid, though. One square directly below the man on the gate, Claude already has a unit standing there. Nobody has swung at him, and nobody has looked at the fight sitting right there. Instead, Eirika goes back down. She is fragile, she moves last, the heavier units go first, and that is textbook Lord play. It is also 3 turns gone with nobody moved. Now the cursor goes walking, and this is the part with no equivalent for anybody holding a pad. Claude cannot glance at a sprite and know whose it is. It drives the cursor onto a unit and waits for the nameplate to tell it. Gilliam, 23 of 25, carrying damage from a fight in a previous sitting. An armored knight crosses 4 squares a turn and shrugs off almost anything, which is a fair trade on a map whose objective cannot run away. A on him, and Claude is expecting a movement range. It says as much. The grid that comes back will settle which column and row this cursor is really on. What unrolls instead is the map menu. Unit, status, guide, options, suspend, end. No blue, no range, and that is the game saying this one has already had his turn. It is an answer to a question Claude did not ask. B to shut it, L to hunt again, and the cursor comes back round to Eirika. 2.5 minutes in, and the shape of this session is a roll call. Press, read the plate, work out who is left. The chapter has not moved, which leaves the middle of this map looking like a problem nobody is solving. 4 units strung across open grass, 1 commander on a gate in the corner, and 3 more enemies parked away in the far southeast that nobody has dealt with. Those 3 appeared out of nothing behind the army a couple of turns back, in ground it had already walked through. They have not taken a step since, and every unit Claude owns is pointed the other way, at a castle. Quiet patch of grass, so while nothing is happening, a like genuinely helps this find people. That is the whole ask. Back to it. And there is Franz, 15 of 20. That damage is old. It came off him in a previous sitting on the road east of here, and nothing has been done about it since. Claude has finally looked at the bar. And the reasoning is better than it looks. Nothing Franz can reach this turn puts him beside that commander, so there is no attack available at all. If you cannot fight, mend somebody. Rescue, item, trade, wait. Down 1 to item, and the pack opens beside his portrait. An iron lance, an iron sword, 2 vulneraries. A vulnerary is about 10 health in a bottle. And there is not 1 healer among these 4, so those 2 bottles are the entire medical service of this army. Use and the glow wraps round him. 20 of 20. France is whole again, and it has cost a full turn from the fastest unit here, which on a map with a gate at the far end is a real price. 7 squares of movement spent standing still and drinking. Claude presses L to move along, and the screen it gets back is not the one it wanted. A wide field of blue lying over the grassland, and Claude cannot tell whose it is or why it is there. It presses B to put down whatever might be held, which is exactly the obvious move. And this precise state is written in the note Claude arrived with. A unit that has moved but not yet acted still counts as held, and B will not reliably clear it. Recorded in the player's own words by somebody who is no longer running. So the answer was already in its possession. What is missing is recognizing which of several identical-looking situations this one is, and that is the harder half. B goes in. The blue does not move. Nothing on this screen moves at all. 40 seconds now on one still picture that will not change. And this is what the game actually cost somebody working off a screenshot, not the thinking. That two completely different states can look the same, and only a press will separate them. A then, straight onto the square, and the menu that opens has exactly one entry on it. Wait, which is the whole answer. Franz drank the bottle, the animation played, and his turn was never closed. One press ends it properly, and the blue finally goes. 70 seconds, 4 presses, and a cavalier standing exactly where he was. 20 of 20 is worth having. The bill for it is one a person at a controller never sees. Which leaves Eirika. 16 of 16, untouched all campaign, and the last one on this board still holding orders. Everything here still comes down to getting her into that corner. And Claude walks her 2 squares west, and behind the others, which is away from the castle rather than towards it. The stated reason is keeping her clear of the axeman guarding the gate. There is no axeman. The man on that gate carries a lance. It changes nothing, since she is nowhere near either weapon. But Claude reads numbers off the screen beautifully and reads names off it badly. And there is his name, still sitting on 2. He steps off the gate, and the battle screen reads 4. The gate paid him on the way out. Lance in, cess to 25. And the counter goes straight through. 9 onto a 4. That is the boss of this chapter, gone, in an exchange nobody on Claude's side ever chose. 2 things happened there, and both are firsts. Cess has taken damage, 30 of 30 through an entire prologue and an entire chapter, never once scratched, and it took a commander with a lance to finally put 5 points on him. And the other one, Claude pressed nothing. The turn it spent there was a wait, on the grounds that the phase was playing out by itself, which it was. The biggest thing in 3 sittings happened while the player was deliberately not touching it. It is also the trade of the chapter, and the other side chose it. He was on 4 health, on a defended square, standing on the objective, and he stepped off it to swing a lance at the one unit built to eat lances. New phase, and the corner is bare for the first time in this campaign. It is not bare behind her, though. Those 3 in the southeast have started walking, and the grid puts them halfway up the map. On ground, the army has already left. So it is a race Claude can finish in 1 move. 5 arrows in a single go, counted straight off the grid, 2 west and 3 north, and it does not see this board again until all 5 have landed. The cursor stops on the gate, A, and she walks it, and the menu that opens has an entry on it this campaign has never seen. C's, top of the list, above item and trade and weight, and only there because she is standing on the gate itself. This is the square the whole chapter has been about. And that is chapter 1, taken on turn 4 by a lord who has not swung a weapon once, on a square its holder walked off of his own accord. In this entire sitting, not one enemy has died to a button Claude actually pressed. The map pulls back to parchment and the game says it out loud. Eirika and her companions have liberated the border castle, which is generous, for 4 people, one of whom spent his turn on a bottle. Turn 4, on a chapter that has been running across 3 sittings, and it finishes the way this game likes to finish things. 1 menu entry and 1 press. And a name goes past that this campaign has not had before. Princess Tana of Frelia rides alongside them. Frelia was a word in a conversation 2 chapters ago, and now it has a person attached to it. Inside Castle Frelia now, and this is the half of the game the board never explains. Eirika has been running since her own castle fell. Frelia is the neighbor that took her in, and the man with the green hair is the king who opened the gates. And then a line that changes what all of this is for. Somebody in that throne room intends to ride to her brother's side with reinforcements. So the plan is not shelter, the plan is going back out into the country she has just escaped. Which is not a small thing to ask from a princess with 4 soldiers and somebody else's roof over her head. The hall does not simply say yes to it. A king calls somebody in. You called, my king. And a face this campaign has never used walks into the frame, which is generally how this game tells you it is about to hand you somebody. And all of it goes past at speed. Text on this cartridge was turned up to maximum by an earlier player, so a conversation that would run for minutes at the default goes through in a fraction of it. Eirika, you don't really intend to go through with this, do you? Which is as close as this scene comes to saying it plainly. What she is proposing is dangerous, and everyone in that room knows it. And Claude has sat through the whole of it on 3 presses and a wait. What its own account records of this stretch is that a green-haired king spoke, and that something would prove quite valuable on the journey. Then the save screen arrives by itself. 3 slots. The top one still says Chapter 1, Escape, and the 2 below it say No Data. 1 file, holding everything this campaign has ever done. And the changeover lands right on top of it. The Claude that fought that chapter has run out of turns, and a different one has arrived to a menu it did not open, about to write over a file it did not earn. It knows what to do because the note says so. 3 slots, always use the top one, A on the slot and A again on the prompt, 4 lines of text, and a player that has never seen this screen behaves as though it has. Which makes this a strange little moment. The only player who saw that castle taken is gone, and the job of writing it down falls to the one who did not. Save. Confirm, and Chapter 1 is on the cartridge for good. Not that the game intends to let anyone rest. The parchment comes back, a castle in the northwest, a keep to the east, a road drawn between them, and no cursor on any of it yet. This is the world map, and it is the one part of Sacred Stones that is not a battle. Between chapters you stand on it, and a red flag somewhere on the parchment is where the next fight is waiting. Claude is standing on Castle Frelia, and the flag is southeast of it. Down, down, right, right. And this is one of the very few screens in this game where a wrong press costs absolutely nothing. The party marker slides across the parchment, and it is worth noticing what is not on this screen. No health bars, no terrain, no enemies. For about 90 seconds, this game stops being a war. One more step down, and the plate unrolls. ID. The note Claude carries has the rule for this written out. Walk onto the flag, wait for the name to appear, then press A, and not before. ID is a village rather than a castle, and a flag over it means the next chapter happens there, which tells you something before a single unit is placed. This fight is going to be fought over somebody's houses. A, and they set out. The map shrinks into a panel, the party leaves Frelia, and the game takes the story back for a couple of minutes. King Hayden apologizes for being unable to spare soldiers, which is the honest version of that haul. The neighboring kingdom is sympathetic, it is not committing, and Eirika is going anyway. What he does provide is a small but trusted party of vassals, and there they are. A woman with green hair in white armor, and a mustached man in a red coat. Claude's army has just gone from 4 to 6 and has not been told. Chasing rumors of her brother, she sets out for Grotto. Grotto being the country whose army came over the border in the first place, so the plan is to walk straight into it. And the first stop is the remote village of ID, which was, until very recently, a part of Renais. Until very recently. Here, Eirika sees the devastation of Renais. Not a battle, not an objective. The game stopping to say that the ground she is walking over used to be hers. Then runes and carved stone, and the chapter names itself. Chapter 2. The Protected. Seth has mapped out a route for us, and there are the 2 new faces either side of a conversation about where to go in a green field that looks nothing like the last 3 maps. And Claude has read that one correctly. Its own account of the last minute says a green-haired woman and a bearded man talk of Eirika being given a small but capable force, the story landing for once. And then the game cuts away from Eirika entirely, which neither of the last 2 chapters did, to show what is already happening in this valley. Hey boss, we found more villages ripe for the picking. Grab everything that's not nailed down and bring it to the hideout. That is the enemy of this chapter, stated in 2 sentences. No army, no border war, no commander on a gate. Bandits, working through a valley, pulling apart villages that were part of Renais until very recently and now belong to nobody who can defend them. And then 2 faces this game has not used before, a young man and an older one knocking him about, and the boy's own next line settles what the 2 of them are to each other. You're a warrior, Dad, and I'm your son. I won't be beaten so easily. Which is a boy losing a fight to his father and declining to admit it, and it is the first warm thing in 3 chapters. Player phase, and the board finally arrives, 19 minutes into a run that has spent most of itself between chapters rather than inside one. Defeat enemy, 6 left, which is a different shape from C's gate. There's no square to stand on and no shortcut. 6 things have to die, and the map is a valley with a ridge running down the middle of it. Claude 6 are packed into the northwest corner, 3 villages along the top, 2 green units out east, which means allies it does not command, and 6 enemies scattered east and south, most of them a long way from anybody. Eirika goes up first, and the blue that spreads round her does not touch a single red square. There is nothing to fight this turn from where she is standing, and Claude reads that off the grid correctly and says so. Nothing at stake for a moment, so there is a subscribe button, and this chapter has barely started. Right, back to it. The move it picks is 2 squares east onto what it calls open ground, on the reasoning that the whole force has to start moving somewhere. And the square it lands on is not open ground. Visit, item, supply, wait. Visit is top of the list, and it is only there because that is a village door. Claude takes it. Visiting costs nothing, it says, and usually hands over an item or a piece of news. What is inside is a conversation, and the first thing Eirika does in it is lie. Asked who she is, in a village of the country she is princess of, she gives the name Erina. And the person she is lying to answers honestly, I am Selena, a general in Grotto's army. These aren't soldiers, they're people. Will you help them? No, of course I'll help them. And a red gem goes into the pack on the way out. Grotto, the country whose soldiers took Renais apart, a general of that army, standing in a Renais village asking for help defending it from a princess of Renais who has just told her she is a hired sword. And none of that reaches the player. What comes back is a map that looks exactly like the map before, and an account of the last 30 seconds that reads, in full, the long village conversation has ended. So B, to clear whatever might be selected. Nothing happens. Which is correct, because visiting that village finished Eirika's turn, and there was nothing left to clear. Await then to see whether the game is working through something, and the picture comes back identical. Same 6 units, same objective, same 6 enemies, same cursor on the same doorstep. This is the trap this game keeps setting for a player like it's 1 frame a turn. A board with nothing left to do on it, and a board that has stopped answering, look exactly alike, and no amount of staring separates them. So Claude spends a turn to find out, 2 squares left and the cursor moves, which settles it. The controls are reaching the game. What was frozen was the plan, not the picture. And the grid that comes back holds the answer it needed 90 seconds ago. Eirika is not in the corner. She is 2 squares east on the village she visited. Grayed out and finished for the turn. "90 seconds, 3 presses, and 5 units who have not moved a square in this chapter. That is what the ambiguity costs, and it has landed in the worst minute of the run to spend it. And there is the map menu again. Unit, status, guide, options, suspend, end. Which means the A went onto somebody already finished, and Eirika really is done for the turn. Huh. 24 minutes gone, and this chapter is 1 village old. 5 of Claude's 6 have not taken a step in it, and there is no longer enough on the clock to move any of them. And then the right move at last. Close the menu, jump to whoever still holds orders, pick them up. Exactly what this position needed, and no time at all left to spend it. So the game gets put away where it stands. Out of the menus, cursor onto bare ground and down the list to suspend. The game asks whether you want to quit. Yes, and the valley folds back to a title screen, holding turn 1 of chapter 2 exactly where it was left,